What's going on, guys? It's your boy, Zach Evanesh, Strong Life Podcast, episode 377. I'm ready to take notes. Rusty Witt from Troy University will be hopping on. I met Rusty a couple of years ago at Summer Strong, but I knew about him just through word of mouth, and I came across a video of him. I feel like ESPN put the video out about a special forces soldier who was in strength and conditioning, who was a strength coach and then enlisted in the military during 9/11, and then after retiring from the military back to strength and conditioning. So I spent some time with Rusty the past few years, a little bit more closely during Summer Strong and also once during Winter Strong. Just an awesome guy. I love watching his Instagram at Troy University, watching the athletes just be aggressive and destroying the weight room. We see a lot of cleans and deadlifts and squats and benching with speed, all kinds of jump training, sprint training. They have an indoor like incline ramp in the weight room where they do plyometric training. And I love to see it. And it's a reminder of what works in training. And today at my high school, must have trained 80 athletes in one group. And we are in the end of the year where it goes to a half day early dismissal. And so, in an effort to work with all the athletes' parents and their ability, to get a ride and transportation, I have to train them all as one group. So, football has about 60 athletes. Then, girls' soccer is 12 to 15 athletes. Then, wrestling is another 12 athletes. And it's packed to the gills. And what I try to explain to the athletes with what we're doing, because they want to get into the fancy stuff, is that what we're doing is what is being done in the best college sports performance programs, except they're doing it better and they're training heavier and their technique is more dialed in. So they're doing great training at a higher level. So I have to talk to the athletes who don't show up, which is about 2/3 of them are not consistent. So a lot of people reach out and say, "Oh my God, the Zach Evanish doesn't have kids showing up." That is correct. We have athletes who will not show up at all in the off season, even when their football coach, wrestling coach, soccer coach tells them, this is what you guys are supposed to do. They defy the coach. And so we're in very interesting times. And spoke with my buddy Matty Nickel about this, and he said something like that. You cannot be a prophet in your own town, something like that. I don't want to get religious, but I believe that is like a Bible, verse. And John Wellborn, my bro, Johnny Wellborn, said proximity bias. People are like, whoa, there's no way we can have a great strength coach. He's free. He's in our school. Or there's no way that guy in Manasquan is great. We have to go somewhere else. And so, unfortunately, that's how people operate. People don't want to listen. And then, speaking with my other buddy, Paul Collodi, we haven't done it for a while, but we have the New Jersey High School Strength Coach podcast, which you could listen to all those back episodes. He was saying that actually it takes discipline and toughness and grit to be able to train in the crowded weight room, because you have to stay even more focused. And so we have 8 squat racks. So today I had to split up the 2 groups. Football was on day 2, which was an upper body day. Girls soccer and wrestling was on day 1, which was lower body day. So football has varsity and JV. JV started in the bottom portion of the training. Varsity started in the top. And then after they do 4 or 5 sets, they have to flip flop. And sorry, guys, checking my phone if Rusty's going to check in here. They had to flip flop. That frees up the equipment and it helps with the flow. That is extremely important when you train large groups. Is your organization has to be on point, and the flow is important, because with added downtime, even though we want them resting, so it doesn't turn into like a light workout, a light training session, we want them to spot and coach one another. Then when you're done coaching one another, you move to the next 1 or 2 exercises. Usually it's 3, in the 3 exercises in the top block, 3 in the bottom. So for example, today was speed bench press for 5. The second exercise was shrugs for 10. We do everything like kind of in multiples of numbers so they could remember. And then the third exercise was a medicine ball throw for 10. Pick 2 exercises, do 5 reps. The in-depth program design stuff, by the way, we really tackle that with the underground strength coach cert and the SSPC cert. So I'll link those up below for you guys. There's discount codes, by the way, on the forum of the Underground Strength Academy. So if you're a member in there. Now, the bottom bracket, it said floor press for 10, but I told the football players, I said, if you weren't here in the springtime and you don't know how to floor press, you're not floor pressing. You are going to be on a standing one-arm dumbbell military press for the same reps. So it was 10 on the floor press, 5 each arm on the military press. Second exercise was choosing a row variation, whatever row was available. Recline row, chest supported row. We have 1 cable row. So if there's 3 people in that area, I'm okay with that. And then double or single arm kettlebell row. Third exercise, I can't even remember what it was for the football players. It was so crazy. So it was the floor press. It was the row. Third exercise was the medicine ball throw. Actually, I don't know. I said medicine ball throw on the top block. It's all blurred to me. Some of the athletes, when they came to find a squat rack in wrestling and soccer, if it was too crowded because football was doing power shrugs in the squat racks, if it was too crowded and you are not tall enough to get into a group, you had to go and do dumbbell squats or medicine ball squats. So in the weight room is all the strength and power work. Then right outside the weight room, I have like a basketball gym. I had hurdles set up for you to do your hurdle jumps and sprint. Medicine ball throws are done outside against an outside school building. So it was pretty wild. Let's see if Rusty sent an email here. It was pretty wild. It's a lot going on. And if you've never heard me say it before, I'll say it now. Being an elementary phys ed teacher was one of the best things that really helped me with organization and flow. Because at the elementary level, if you don't tell a first grader exactly how, what, why, when to do it, they will mess it up. So that was something that I would say always helped me, and I'm always grateful for that. And I want to say this, on social, we see a lot of training videos. We see some great stuff. We see some real dangerous, shitty stuff. And I try to explain to coaches is what you might see me do at the underground strength gym with, an average of 8 athletes in a group is different than what you're going to see me doing at a high school when I've got 40, 50, 60, 90 athletes in a group. And for example, I wanted to do sleds. There's no way we were going to be able to do sleds today. But at the end of the training session, we all went outside to do our hill sprints, but we could not all go at the same hill. So to my right is a longer hill, about 150 feet. That's where girls soccer and wrestling went. To my left was a short hill. It's like the side of a field, and then it goes into an old field hockey practice field. And so I had 2 whistles. On the first whistle, girls soccer and wrestling went at the same time as rising sophomores or freshman football players. So boom, they ran sprints. Second whistle, JV and varsity football would sprint. JV and varsity football, I got added some specificity to it where linemen might just get over the hill, whereas skill guys had to run over the hill, and then they had to get to the middle of the field. So they had to run another 20, 30, 40 feet. And is it perfect? Absolutely not. But I want you to think about this. Is sports perfect? Is competition perfect? No, the answer is no. It's never perfect. And so it's okay if your training is a little bit flawed in the program design model. What we don't want, what we want to minimize, and this is also not going to be perfect, especially if you're a one coach to the 50, 60, 80, 90 athletes, is we don't want to flaw the technique. Technique should really be dialed in. Who tends to mess up the technique? The athletes who don't train in the off season. And so we have kids that go to private coaches, and then I have to tell them, you know why I don't like you going to a private coach, even though I'm a private coach? Because you can't even demonstrate a recline row. You don't know how to do a goblet squat. So I'm not sure what happens at some of these private facilities, but many of these kids come back worse. They are not stronger. They didn't put on muscle. Their technique has not improved. And remember that strength is a skill. So as you get stronger, you improve your inter and intramuscular coordination, so your technique improves. But then these athletes, for some odd reason, they don't get better and they come back worse. The other thing that's strange is that I have seen freshmen who finish football season around Thanksgiving. Let's say they weigh 150 pounds. They are still 150 pounds. At this age, with your testosterone flying, if you're not building muscle, it's like you're doing everything in your power to not get strong. And this is why I think books like Super Squats and Dinosaur Training are so important, or Keys to Progress. Super Squats, Keys to Progress. Dinosaur Training might be available from Iron Mind, but you could certainly find these books on Amazon or eBay, things of that nature. But Super Squats and Keys to Progress talk about effort. They talk about squatting, deep squats. They talk about overhead pressing, farmer walks, calisthenics. They talk about sleeping. They talk about drinking whole milk and eating a lot. In Super Squats, you have the Get Big Drink, unless that's in Keys to Progress by John McCallum. And you have some volume in there. And then I add the sports performance angle, jumping, medicine ball throwing, sprinting. And so we add that to the strength training, to the bodybuilding methods. And bodybuilding is a necessity for high school athletes. It puts on body armor. There might be 1 in 1,000 high school athletes where you're like, oh, he's got enough muscle. She has enough muscle. It's that rare. Okay. It's 1 in 1,000, but they all can and should be getting better. Think about it. They're 14, 15, 16, 18 years old. There's no way anybody is at their peak at that age. And so at the high school level, what we're doing is very much what's going to happen at the collegiate level. At the collegiate level, they're just going to do those things better. They're going to squat better. They're going to clean better. We're also going to have better equipment, more than likely, unless you're at some of these. If you've seen some of these high schools that Sorinex has put together, you are like double checking. That's a high school. It looks better than many Division I universities I've been at. The other thing that's a benefit being at the college is smaller groups, consistency, and the age. So when they're older and have a greater training age from sport, many of these sports have gotten the athletes stronger. Wrestling is weightlifting. I'm lifting another weight, a human body. If I'm playing football and I'm pushing somebody, I am performing strength work. I'm just strength training against the human body. And so the ability to train somebody when they're older, it gets easier unless they're coming in with a lot of bad habits. And sometimes that's the problem with all these private coaches is the kids get arrogant and then they lack humility. And that leads to an uncoachable athlete, somebody who can't get better, somebody who always needs something special, a special training program, a special exercise. I can't squat. I can't do this. I can't do that. And then you're reminded, hey, I'm going to watch the NFL. They're doing the basics with brilliance. They're doing the simple things savagely well. These are all quotes I've gotten from the Strong Life podcast. And so I want you to be, as a strength coach or as a strength trainee or a parent of an athlete, I want you to be married to the basics, right? Basics for the win. As soon as you think you are above those exercises, going into the weight room with a lack of respect is a great way to get weak. It's a great way to get injured. And I'm going to read to you guys a little excerpt from this morning's newsletter, the Strong Life newsletter over at zachstrength.com. And the reason why is because I'm getting close to releasing Iron Journeys. And I wrote the entire book. And then after going through it with my buddy Chris Cavalrano, he is my editor. And he said, man, some of these stories have a little bit of repetition to them. I think it's going to work better if you break it up into a part 1 and part 2. So I'm going to read to you a little excerpt from chapter 2, Rudy. So check it out. We learned how to squat using the Hoagland bar, but it was popularized as the safety squat bar because Fred Hatfield, aka Dr. Squat, used it often. Rudy taught my friend and I not just how to squat physically, but also the mental side of squatting. See below. So just listen and try to visualize this. I would train at the Avenel Health and Racket Club with my friend. And remember, this book is part fiction and part nonfiction. Boys, first of all, get your head out of your ass. When you squat, it's not the time to be thinking about anything else. Not your girlfriend, not your homework, nothing. All right, grab that fucking bar and hold the handles tight. Good. Now get under the bar and squeeze your back. Your back is a shelf for the bar. Get it tight. Good. Now get directly under the bar and squat it up. Excellent. Now take 2 steps back. Good. Here we go. Take a deep breath, squat down slowly, and then explode. Good. Now do 4 more. Down slow, explode. Excellent. Again. So we did 1 and he's telling us to do 4 more. What are we doing? 5 by 5. You cannot go wrong with 5 by 5. My friend and mentor, Marty Gallagher, author of The Purposeful Primitive, he has often said that 5 by 5 is the perfect blend of strength and muscle building. And it is excellent for athletes. And in today's crowded weight room at the high school, normally when I tell an athlete to substitute a dumbbell exercise for the barbell, they double the reps. So if the barbell says 5, dumbbells are going to be 10. But I told them it's way too busy in here for us to be doing sets of 10 on benches. So everybody's going to do 5. And I said, if you're upset that you're on the dumbbell bench, you can prove me wrong by dumbbell benching the hundreds. And so what I try to hit home to these kids is that the referee doesn't ask you how much you bench or squat or clean. They don't care. Training and utilizing various exercises is just a vehicle to improve sports performance. Like my buddy Brian Bott says from Sports Advantage, we as strength coaches are delivering a better product to the sport coach. Back to the story of Rudy. Okay, boys, if 5 reps is easy, which it was, add more weight. Rudy was there with some of his pro wrestling friends because pro wrestlers would train at this gym because it was a quick train ride to get to New York City, aka Madison Square Garden. It was about a 40-minute train ride. So Rudy's wrestling buddies took a step closer, looked at the weight we had at the bar, and me and my buddy were thinking of adding a 5, but with Rudy and his friends watching, we said, let's add a 10 to each side. Well, one of the wrestlers shouted and said, fuck those 10s. Put a plate on, boys. My buddy and I looked at each other, smiled, and both said, okay. So sometimes high school athletes will train too light. Sometimes high school athletes will train too heavy and they grind through the reps. And when you're grinding, you become what I call strong and useless. You don't have enough speed. So if you don't have velocity tracking devices like I don't have any, like my buddy Travis Smash works with GymAware, I say you have to use the coach's eye. And most high school athletes have to be working in that like 75 to 85% range when they're doing sets of 3 to 6, because it allows them to get speed, have velocity, and avoid the grind. Is it okay to grind sometimes? Yes, sometimes. 2 out of 10 times, I'm okay with it. But for the majority, I would like to see a little element of speed. And on the build-up sets, the warm-up sets, we should be explosive. Okay. CAT training, compensatory acceleration training. Josh Bryant from Jailhouse Strong has spoken about it many times because Dr. Fred Hatfield was a friend and mentor of his. And then, of course, my bro John Wellborn speaks of Dr. Squat very often on Power Athlete Radio. And they've had Fred Hatfield on their podcast before. So compensatory acceleration training, the way I explain it to kids is if you're benching 225, you have to exert 275 to 300 to beat the weight in a race. It's a race against the weight. So if you're squatting 315 and you exert 315, you're going to get stuck. If you exert 320, it's going to take you 5 to 10 seconds to complete one rep. So I tell them, you cannot exert 315. You must exert 400 pounds. And then when it comes to the bench press, like today, I said, guys, when I was benching about 350, my speed training was at 185. Nobody in this weight room can bench 350. Maybe some of our linemen are getting close to it. So I said, the heaviest you should go is 185. You guys that could bench 200 pounds, your speed work is going to be 95, 105, maybe 115. I try to give them that 50%, but they, teenagers will bump it up to the 60%. You'll see them do it wrong. You need to give them a little bit of an opportunity to do it wrong. And then for the most part, they should be getting coached by you, but there needs to be some autonomy in there because teenagers today, they thrive on that. They like to have ownership. But I'll tell you, there's times where I don't give that ownership. And like today, I went and saw 3 freshmen benching, and one kid barely got his 5th rep. His leg was kicked out in the air. He was squirming. And I went up to the 3 of them and I said, hey, guys, the 3 of you haven't been here since December. So I've said many times, yesterday and today, that if you haven't been here, you're not on a barbell. And so here you guys are not listening to me. Here you are not listening to your football coach many times who's told you to train here. And if you can't listen, you are a liability. You are going to hurt yourself, hurt each other, or hurt somebody else. And I'm not going to have that on my resume. So if you can't listen, you will not be training. And I remind them, I'm not the bad guy. You're the bad guy because you had the opportunity to train here and you chose to say, F off, I do what I want. I'm 14, I'm 15, I don't need to listen to you. And there's part of that, like earn their trust, but there's also time where you've given them opportunities to work with you. They don't want to listen. And so we're not earning trust at all. You have to be more kind of like drawing a hard line and telling them, this is what we do. And what you're doing is wrong and ineffective. And sometimes that hurts feelings, but guess what? My job, as I tell them, is to protect them. In a sport where somebody's trying to rip your head off and break your arm and blow out your kneecaps, they're trying to hurt you. I cannot afford you to be weak. You can't afford to be weak. And I'm sure your parents want me to protect you. And so whatever I say to an athlete, whether it's at the high school or at the underground strength gym, is everything I will say to my own son and my own daughter. So back to the programming, you need to have this blend of 80 to 90%. When you're at the high school, it really depends. When you're at the high school level, you're playing it by ear, where you're telling them, this is what we do. Then when they do those things, they have earned the right to get a little extra on their own. So oftentimes they want to do arms, they want to do abs. I show them maybe new exercises that they haven't done before. And that's what allows them to feel like they own the workout. They finish with arms, they finish with doing exercises that they wanted to do. And now they think like they have won the game. And as Jim Wendler says, you want to win the game when you get off the bus, just by the way you look. And that's why Jim does some sort of hypertrophy circuit training. He says it's not odd to just use a bunch of empty barbells and do 20 reps of curls, 20 reps of military presses, 20 reps of shrugs or upright rows, to build that muscle. Nothing fancy, nothing complicated, but it's what works. It might not be triphasic. It might not be the coolest, most technical, weight releasers followed by, contrast this, contrast that. We're more looking at strongest shall survive, dinosaur training, super squats, methods used from jailhouse strong, prison training, and, early days underground strength. The common misconception out there nowadays is that if it doesn't look crazy, it's not effective, when it's really the opposite. The crazy shit is just a circus act. It does nothing. Maybe it helps a college athlete or a pro athlete believe in the training more because they're doing something unique and special. But listen, as Jim Wendler says, and by the way, Jim Wendler wrote the foreword to Iron Journeys. Okay. Jim has said, listen, if you can't run a mile, if you can't do 50 push-ups, how can I trust you to do your job on the football field? He goes, even the big guys should be able to run a mile. Big guys should be able to do pull-ups. But we have too much of this. Oh, I'm a big guy. I shouldn't do that. I'm a skill guy. I should only do that. No, you should all be strong and athletic. And that's why I push the linemen to join the wrestling team, because I know it's going to make them better. I know it's extremely tough, but I know it's going to make them better. All right, guys, looks like Rusty was caught up in a meeting. I don't think he's making it, or I know he's not making it because we were supposed to do this at 2. I bumped it to 3. So we'll have to reschedule for another time. So this was a solo episode, episode 377. A reminder, guys, this podcast is free for you. It's not free for me. Support the show. Check out the resources below. Gladiator Strong, 7 days free introduction on Train Heroic, SSPC certification, first underground strength coach certification. That's where you should start. Underground Strength Academy, discount codes for the certifications, and leave a 5-star review on Apple. That would be extremely helpful for me. All right, guys, I'm out of here. Have an awesome day. If you're here on YouTube, subscribe, like, comment, and share. Peace out, guys. Have a great day.